Every corporate identity ought to be able to work in one single flat color like black. Even if black isn't the official corporate color, if the design doesn't work in black, it doesn't work. Let's talk about it. Up to now in this course, you've seen several hundred logos. Most of those have been presented only in solid black. Yes, those designs mostly have a corporate color, but you saw the designs and they still worked in solid black. Too many designers think this has no relevance today. They think that in this day of computer graphics and the Web 2.0 look, such notions are archaic and passé. But lest I come across as a grumpy design curmudgeon with backward or retro ideas, look at the innovators of that very 2.0 look. What company has led the way in industrial design and digital utility more than any other? What company epitomizes contemporary design and refinement in everything from advertising to packaging to product design? Apple. Some might ask, doesn't Apple have a logo that employs that cool, transparent, or jelly look? Yes, but they retired that 13 years ago, and that logo was based on their solid black design anyway. In fact, the company still uses the solid shape, not the Web 2.0 version, on all its products. Go to the Apple website. Do you see the transparent jelly version of the Apple logo anywhere? No. In fact, how big is their logo? Only 35 pixels wide. Try doing that with a logo whose only version has a colored jelly or transparent look. The issue isn't that the glass look is wrong. It's just that the transparent or dimensional look is not where you start. You start with a solid design and add the whistles and bells afterward. You don't design something that is all whistles and bells and has no substance. And that won't change, even when we're at Web 100. Once you have a solid, well-designed identity, you can always embellish it. Each of these logos is based on a solid shape. There's no problem embellishing a solid shape. But the reverse is not always true. If you start with the multicolored 3D or transparent version, you may find nothing substantial under all the visual adornment. Regrettably, too many identities are designed this way, and not just for companies that couldn't afford the best design. In fact, some huge companies have paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to rebrand themselves with identities that were weaker than the brands they replaced. As if that were not bad enough, then they spent more hundreds of thousands of dollars, sometimes even millions, implementing that new, weaker brand on their vehicles, signage, stationery, and their products themselves. Ignorance about this principle is rampant in the graphic design industry today. And since all of those companies have since abandoned those weak logos, they have had to replace them and implement those changes. Photographs and illustrations do not make for good logos. There are too many subtleties that don't translate into different media, and at the sizes where a properly designed logo should be able to survive. Look what happens when we subtract the color. Then when we go just with a solid shape, we can really see the problem. Photographs don't make for good identities. They can't be reproduced faithfully in cut vinyl and for vehicles and signage. One might counter that we can now reproduce photos in vinyl, true, but they don't last as long as cut vinyl. For companies with huge vehicle fleets, this translates into significantly more expense over time. But even more common processes, like photocopying, will compromise the clarity of a photo or illustration masquerading as a logo. Some designers think that gradients are acceptable for identity design, reasoning that halftones will reproduce them well. That may be true in magazines and brochures, where the printing quality is relatively high. But what of smaller printing presses used for most companies' stationery reproduction? Beyond that, newspapers and yellow pages do poorly with halftones. Because of their poorer paper quality, a coarser dot per inch halftone is often used where gradients can end up looking blotchy. The worst problem is that any gradients may disguise the inherent weaknesses of certain designs. How many of these have internal contrast to provide excellent legibility? Rendered in solid black, they fail altogether. Color is a beautiful thing, but even when using flat colors in an identity design, multiple colors can mask the lack of a fully developed core design. Too many colors can be a crutch. Losing the crutch of color, can these logos walk on their own? Some limp along, some fall flat. Ask yourself, can the design walk without the crutch of color? The very word design implies finished forms, not half-baked shapes that must have color to work. In many of our modern media, such as magazine ads, internet, TV, and packaging, full color is the norm, with no extra cost for a multicolor identity. But this does not mean that a logo will always have full color. In many other formats, including stationary, everyday business forms, signs, and vehicle identification, needing to show a multicolor identity will significantly increase costs by 150%, 300%, or even 400%. Persuading clients to buy into those extra costs without having warned them beforehand is extremely unprofessional. It is amazing how often this happens. Clients may not think of the reproduction difficulties that a particular logo design can present. That is not their job. But it is the designer's job to think ahead and to be professional enough to at least give clients a choice. Unwary designers might come up with a flashy 3D logo and say, "Wow, that's never been done before." And they should stop and ask why. Maybe it is because it was a bad idea, and previous designers understood the basic principles of identity design and wisely stayed away from such ideas. Very few multicolored designs are so wonderful that an alternative design that works as well in solid black would not have been preferable. Any professional identity ought to be able to work in solid black. If it can't, that's a deadly sin of logo design. For more information, go to logodesigntheory.com. If you found this helpful, be sure to like this video, subscribe, and share this with anyone who needs to know more about logo design.